Good afternoon, I'm Tracy Sinclair, and we are just getting ready for a press conference with Mayor Suzanne Lefrance here in Anchorage to talk about the most recent updates for services and the response to the Halong Evacuees, those people that have been evacuated into the Anchorage area from their villages in Southwest Alaska. Of course, we all know what this is all about. It is all about that massive storm that moved into Southwest Alaska a little over a week ago, and really people had to be evacuated out of their villages. They had to go someplace, and so Anchorage has been chosen as the place for many of these evacuees. And it looks like Mayor Lefrance is just getting ready to begin. Again, this is a press conference with Mayor Suzanne Lefrance and other community leaders to speak about the most recent response to the people that have been evacuated out of their Western Alaska villages into the city of Anchorage. And that was really all that we were told about. Of course, many of those people have been coming in from last week. Let's listen to it.
My name is Suzanne Fleet Green. I am Mayor Lefrance's Chief of Staff, and I'm just launching things off today. I'll run through our lineup. We're going to start off with Mayor Suzanne Lefrance, and then we will go to Representative Jimmy, Anchorage School District Superintendent Jarrett Bryant. Then we will go to Tiffany Zolkowski, Vice President of Communications for the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium. Then we will go to Mary Simpkins, who is the External Affairs Director for the American Red Cross. Welcome to Alaska, and thank you. And then our final speaker will be Mr. Thomas Brown, who is the Communications Specialist for Team Rubicon, who is on the ground and doing a ton of work for us right now, assembling and moving donations around. So I will turn it over to Mayor Lefrance to lead us off.
Thank you, Suzanne, and thank you all for being here today. Good afternoon. I want to begin by acknowledging the immense challenge facing our state and our Western Alaska neighbors following the remnants of Typhoon Halong. The devastation is profound and the displacement is heartbreaking. Today we're here to update the public on steps we all are taking to support the state of Alaska's disaster response here in Anchorage. I stand here with amazing partners in this response effort. To date, roughly 655 people from impacted Western Alaska communities have been evacuated to Anchorage. While many are being cared for at the Alaska Airlines Center and at the Egan Center, many others are staying with family, friends, and other temporary or permanent housing options across our community. Alaskans who have had to evacuate from their communities are our new neighbors here in Anchorage. You are a part of this community, and we welcome you with open arms. We understand that some people may be able to return home soon, while others may be in Anchorage for longer, while repairs to homes and infrastructure are made. This reality demands more than a short-term shelter plan. I am glad the governor is standing up the longer plan for housing and support. We are ready to assist, along with the many tribal and community partners. This long-term effort is powered by the spirit of Anchorage, and it is at the heart of the We Welcome Western Alaska campaign we launched last week. This initiative is a promise. It is a message to rally every resident, every business, and every organization in the municipality to show our new neighbors the hospitality that defines our community. To everyone watching, I urge you to step up and ask how you can help. Your donations, your resources, and your time will directly support this long-term effort, from housing to school supplies to basic needs. And to those who have offered to help and are helping, thank you. We are one Alaska. The people of Western Alaska have suffered a terrible loss, but they have our enduring support. So thank you all again for being here. I'll now turn it over to Representative Jimmy.
I'd like to give a land acknowledgement to the Dena'ina people and the lands. Thank you everyone who responded from within their own community to the state level, to the federal level. People who are reaching out themselves without being asked. Thank you so much, Chuck. When I walk into the shelters, the Alaska Center and the Egan Center, I don't just see refugees. I see my own people, my constituents, my relatives. I cannot begin to my aunties, my children's classmates, people who never thought they'd have to leave home because of a storm. As we move forward from emergency responses to long-term recovery, I want to make sure the voices of rural Alaska are part of every decision, from housing to education to rebuilding, and to ensure that we are still self-reliant people. In our way, we are not taught to help. In our way, we are taught to help one another quietly. To show love is to show up and help through action, not words. But today, I want to speak that gratitude out loud. To the massive response and partnership of all entities that have stepped up to help. I also want to acknowledge the trauma that my people have endured. Even though you've gone through a hard time, you are now safe. You have people working around the clock to ensure that things move good to the future. And thank you for everyone in Anchorage for keeping the compassionate and care you are showing to my people. I'd also like to stress the importance of our culturally informed care, people who have come to translate, to bring traditional foods to the shelters, and give community spaces to welcome them in. Recovery begins when people are seen and heard, not just housed. Clarify current conditions among the Siak female tribal partners and legislators has been going on daily. I please ask for patience and open communications of the relocations of families. Frame recovery as partnerships, not charity. We all know these storms will not be the last, and we must learn from this one. Oyana.
Good afternoon. This is Dr. Jarrett Bryant with the Anchorage School District. So our role in this effort is to welcome our families and students with open arms, and we've been proud to do that over the past week. From the moment these families arrived on the plane, we met them at J-Bear with our school buses, and in the following days, ASD has been committed to providing the services that these students and families need to be successful. everything from translation services to counseling services. Our Indigenous education teams have been there on site to provide support through something that's truly heart-wrenching, and our role in ASD is to stand with Western Alaska through this for the foreseeable future. So since we last spoke at the last press conference, I had the opportunity to be involved in the enrollment process of our students. So late last week, we had about 60 students enrolled within the Anchorage School District from the affected villages. And since then, we now have over 130 students who are enrolled and will be attending Anchorage School District schools. I had the humbling honor to ride the school bus with these affected students yesterday. They probably had no idea who I am, but I know who these students are, and they're some of the strongest people that I've ever met in my life because what they've gone through, no one can describe or really comprehend. But these students were strong. They made it on the bus. Many of them joined with their families, and from here, we need to make sure that in addition to the education, that the Anchorage School District is here to offer those support services for these students for the foreseeable future. So that was yesterday. Today, we'll continue that process of having our school buses pick up students at both shelter sites at the Egan Center and the Alaska Airlines Center so that they make it to school on time. And through my visits to the schools yesterday, there was one common trend, which is that our teachers, our principals, and our community members are standing with Western Alaska, and they were there to greet the students and make them feel as welcome as possible during this difficult time. Behind every enrollment number is a story, it's a face, and it's my role as superintendent to help these students get the supports that they deserve and need. We are trying our best to cohort these students. So one of the common denominators I saw yesterday was that our students had familiar faces with them as they entered school, whether that was one of their peers from their village or in some cases even their families. And we'll continue to go through that process. Right now, most students are at College Gate Elementary, which also happens to house our UPIC immersion program, and we'd like to welcome as many students as we can into that program. Many students are also attending some are going to Lake Otis Elementary. We have a number of middle school age students attending Wendler Middle School, and then a smaller number of high school students that are attending Betty Davis East Anchorage High School, and we've also offered space at King Tech. But what you'll notice is that these schools are within one feeder pattern cluster within East Anchorage, and we'd like to do our best to both provide that opportunity to streamline our services at these sites, but we also want to respect the choice that our families have. As ASD students and families, some of our families have opted to enroll their students in other schools across the district, and we're supporting that effort as well. So I guess just to conclude, ASD is standing with our families affected in Western Alaska, and will continue to support enrollment of students. There may be more students that enroll in the coming days, or there may not be, but regardless, we're going to make sure that our support services are targeted at these schools so we can support these families through this difficult time. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Tiffany Zolkuski. I was born and raised in Bethel. My parents are the late Joe Hines of Kipnuk and Patricia Zolkuski of Bethel and now Anchorage. I am the Vice President of Communications at the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium, where we and our partners at South Central Foundation have come together to play a key role in rapidly upscaling relief efforts in a culturally appropriate, timely, and coordinated way. We did this at the request of our partners on the ground in the region, the Yukon-Kuskokwim Health Corporation, Bethel Community Services Foundation, the Association of Village Council Presidents, AVCP Housing Authority, and many others. More than 200 of our shared employees have volunteered overtime hours to support initial shelter setup and operations, clinical and behavioral health care, initial donation, intake, sorting, and distribution, coordination with local and regional leaders from the Waikiki Delta to ensure a warm landing for individuals and families who are temporarily calling Anchorage home. We continue to work closely with the state, city, Team Rubicon, and many others to identify and address gaps we have seen in shelter operations. Our priority is ensuring our friends and family have what they need to rebuild their lives. Tribes and tribal organizations have been exercising self-determination for more than 30 years, and it won't stop now. ANTHC Food and Nutrition Services is accepting traditional foods to support families in shelter. To support this effort, we have procured an additional mobile refrigeration unit to increase capacity. The Alaska Native Heritage Center is also accepting traditional foods to support families displaced to Anchorage but not currently in mass shelter. We support the goal of local tribal leaders in emphasizing the need to rapidly transition away from mass congregate shelter into more appropriate housing that provides privacy, dignity, and a path forward for individuals and families. We also encourage financial gifts to support communities. There's been a fund that has been established through the Alaska Community Foundation in partnership with Bethel Community Services Foundation and the Healthy Alaska Natives Foundation.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Simpkins. I'm from Michigan. I, like many other Red Cross responders, are here as a visitor to this community, and it is an honor to serve. My role on the American Red Cross Disaster Relief Operation is Assistant Director of External Relations. I want to thank the local, state, tribal partners that have been engaged since day one with this life-saving mission and emergency sheltering response. Our overnight shelter count was 338 individuals across 3 shelters, the vast majority of which are here in Anchorage at the Egan Center and the University of Alaska Anchorage Center. Along with myself, there are 244 trained disaster responders in the operation and visitors in your community. We are constantly cognizant of what the people we are serving have gone through, and the fact that none of us can wrap our arms around the challenges that they face alone. The American Red Cross is a humanitarian organization committed to easing and alleviating the suffering of the current moment, and we are in grateful partnership with everybody at this table as well as the people in our care. We are here to assist and to serve. The community are the experts in their own resilience, and the local organizations are the experts in how best to move forward. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mayor Lefrance, for holding this event, and thank you for inviting Team Rubicon to participate. First and foremost, most important, Team Rubicon has established a central collection facility for donations in Anchorage at the Chugach Electric Warehouse at 1120 East First Avenue between 9 and 4 p.m. every day. We ask that you bring your donations to this address. Again, 1120 East First Avenue between 9 and 4 p.m. every day, including weekends, for processing and distribution to the facilities and communities that need them. We also ask that you only bring new items for donations, please. We encourage anyone who wants to donate to remember that the most effective way to continue supporting recovery efforts is through monetary donations. We are recommending monetary donations first because sometimes after a disaster, a community's generosity overwhelms the local infrastructure, and those donations simply don't get to the people who need them. Thousands of Alaskans have donated so much to support these communities. But right now, we don't have the capacity to collect, sort, inspect, and clean used items for donations. The Chugach Electric Warehouse at 1120 East First Avenue is available every day from 9 to 4 p.m. to accept new items for donations. I'm personally very grateful for the opportunity. I consider Alaska my home state. I went to school here, got my dog here, got married here. Serving communities in need is what Team Rubicon does. Serving my adopted home state is very much exactly what I am here to do. We are here because our local Alaskan volunteers immediately sprang into action when the typhoon hit and built contacts and a local team of Alaskans to respond. This is a team effort. This is an Alaskan effort. Thank you to the Municipality of Anchorage, ANTHC, AFN, Food Bank of Alaska, South Central Foundation, Association of Village Council Presidents, Linden Air Cargo, the Salvation Army, United Way, Chugach Electric, Leave the Fob Ministries, Rotary Alaska, Kaladi Brothers, and all of the other Alaskan businesses, individuals, and organizations that are making this effort possible. Team Rubicon is a veteran-led humanitarian organization that serves global communities before, during, and after disasters and crises. We are grateful that the State Emergency Operations Center, Alaska VOAD, and ANTHC requested Team Rubicon's assistance. We look forward to seeing you donating new items at the Chugach Electric Warehouse at 1120 East 1st Avenue every day between 9 and 4 p.m. Thank you very much.
So we will now hear from Municipal Manager Becky Wint-Pearson. She will address the ways in which the municipality is supporting the state's response.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for being here with us today. I'll conclude with really a specific kind of nuts and bolts update on the municipality's efforts to support the current the sheltering operation here in the municipality. So the Municipality of Anchorage Emergency Operations Center is currently activated to level 3 in support of the state of Alaska's ongoing disaster response. Our efforts, as you can see here, are unified and coordinated with a wide range of partners, including the state, the University of Alaska, the Red Cross, the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation, and the Anchorage School District. As noted, the total number of evacuees who've joined us here in the Anchorage community currently stands at 655, and last night 338 of those evacuees were supported through one of the 2 shelters in Anchorage, 160 at the University of Alaska and 178 at the Egan Center here downtown. I do want to reiterate that our community does have a total capacity of 850 between those 2 shelters, and we have additional capacity at municipal recreation centers of another 400 beds. And so we've been told that we may anticipate expecting additional evacuees, and we really stand ready with the physical capacity and facility capacity as a municipality to be able to welcome them as needed. As has been noted several times here, our current immediate priority is to support the transition of evacuees from congregate to non-congregate sheltering situations. The municipality, we've already identified more than 1,000 available non-congregate shelter beds. We've shared that data with the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation, and we are working to support them in initiating longer-term temporary solutions that provide more of that desired privacy and autonomy in the sheltering context. We're working to expedite the movement of people from shelters to hotels, really in collaboration with the state's housing task force, which began meeting on Monday to facilitate this transition. With respect to the congregate shelters currently in operation, as you heard, the Red Cross is the lead for shelter operations in critical partnership with the South Central Foundation and the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium. The state is working on site to ensure that evacuees in Anchorage are connected with information regarding the individual assistance application expansion. At the municipality, we really see our role as working to respond to resource requests and to wrap the shelters and the evacuees with an additional layer of support during their time here. This effort has included support for showers and hand washing stations and laundry facilities at the shelters, access to municipal recreation centers for bathing and recreation, anchor rides providing transportation to medical appointments, people mover bus passes for evacuees, and transit department navigators providing help with orientation and training, parking passes for volunteers, supporting needs for things like privacy solutions at the Egan Center, public library access at the shelters, and really helping to make sure that we are duplicating all critical services at both shelter locations in partnership with all of the partners you see here today, UAA, the Red Cross, ANTHC, and South Central Foundation. For the Egan Center specifically, you may have noticed downtown that to improve the safety and service access near the Egan Center, we've implemented some traffic calming measures in coordination with the Alaska Department of Transportation. So you'll see that we've closed a lane on 5th Avenue that will stay there and for the duration of the sheltering operations at the Egan. We've also changed signalization downtown. There's a flashing signal at 5th and E Street. It's designed to help address the increase in foot traffic in the area. And we'd ask that anyone traveling downtown really exercise caution and pay attention to their surroundings. We're also providing an on-site police detail at the Egan Center, and we've increased the overtime attention from our police department to the downtown core while we have an increase in population here with us in Anchorage's downtown. Finally, our logistics team is working on assistance for evacuated animals who we understand may be arriving in Anchorage as soon as today. We've increased our shelter capacity and will be circulating information in the days to come to the public about donation needs, including potentially blankets and dog food. Our top objectives really remain clear. It's to transition evacuees to non-congregate shelter and support that any way we can, to provide for the health and well-being of all evacuees, and to ensure that our operations are safe, accessible, and scalable as this emergency continues to unfold. That's all for my lengthy update. Aside.
All right, I think we'll move to the questions portion, if members of the press have questions. Go ahead.
Hi, Mark Tyson, Associated Press. Do we have any plan that will shut down the Alaska Airlines Center first and transfer people to Egan? I didn't know what the contractual obligations were for either facility and what the plans might be.
I understand that the plans are still evolving. I was just on a call in which the Red Cross leadership indicated at this point there's no intent to make any changes to having both shelters open, but that the intent is to move as quickly in support of the state to moving people to non-congregate sheltering options, so moving them directly from where they are as opposed to having people move from one shelter to another and then potentially into a non-congregate option. Clearly this situation is evolving every day, so we'll continue to receive updates on the plan, but as of right now the intent is to keep both shelters open and move people directly from the shelters to a non-congregate option.
Hi, I'm Alex Cameron, Daily News. Could I ask you, Becky, to describe a bit more about the housing accommodations as well as the hotel accommodations that are being pursued by the city?
Absolutely. So what we have been doing, the state will be the lead on moving the individuals who have been evacuated into housing options of their choice. What we've been doing is to try and support that effort by identifying every resource we can. So we've had a staff person for the past 4 days, making phone calls to every available hotel in town, pricing out hotel rooms, asking for whether there are discounts or donations available, whether rooms are pet friendly. He's been in touch with Airbnb. He's talked with large-scale commercial landlords in the community to ask how many units do they have available? Would there be discounts? Would there be opportunities for us to be able to provide that resource at below market cost? And really to try and do that initial homework because, as noted, we are the municipality. We know the resources we have here, and then we've handed that to the Housing Finance Corporation point of contact, who's going to take from here that matching of individuals and families with the resources that are available.
That represents about 1,000 options, is that right? 1,000 beds?
We have identified more than 1,000 available hotel rooms, and in addition to that, available programs through Airbnb to potentially provide accommodations free of charge. We've also identified a set of available rental units over and above that 1,000 number.
Okay. Also, if you don't mind me continuing to ask questions, what's the estimated cost so far, and how would the city be reimbursed? And can you also describe how some of the costs are being broken out? I assume center costs, housing costs, hotel costs, and other costs. Can you talk about those details?
Sure, I can. I don't have all of the specifics you may be seeking at this moment because we are in the midst of an effort to try and develop a system for tracking our expenses more carefully on a day-to-day basis. You're correct, there is an expense for the use of the Egan Center on a daily basis. We also, like many of the partners here, are incurring costs for additional services and contracts that we're paying for and staff overtime and supplies that we've purchased. And so at this point, I don't have an accurate number to give you. We are, again, working on a system internally to be able to track those day to day. And one of the reasons I don't have an accurate number to give you is that we're in a conversation with the state right now about which services they contract for directly, because this is really a state emergency, and which we will pay for and then seek reimbursement for later. At the end of the day, the commitment we have from the state is that these costs will be borne through the state and potentially with support from the federal government depending on the outcome of the request for a federal disaster declaration.
Okay, thank you.
What's the early Alaska Public Meeting? On the topic of a federal disaster declaration, the Muni seemed pretty confident that one would come on Friday, and it hasn't yet. Do you have any semblance as to what is holding that up, if there is an intention, even in your conversations with the state?
We do not have any more information than what the state has provided with us. So our optimism was potentially optimism by transference from what we had been told. Again, as I noted, I think in response to your question last time we spoke, was we aren't in direct communication with the White House regarding the disaster declaration. That is a request from our governor, who has made that request to the president, and we are awaiting his response.
And I'm wondering if maybe Representative Jimmy could indulge me, but I'm curious just from her perspective, you know, why she believes that a federal disaster declaration would be warranted, what she would tell the president as to why it's important.
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
Sure. If you were talking to the president right now, why would you, what would you tell him as to why it's important to have a federal disaster declaration?
It's important that, I would say it's important to declare disasters because Alaska is made up of rural villages, and without rural, there's no Alaska. That is our way of life. That is where my ancestors have come from, and that's what I would say.
And then I did have a follow-up for Dr. Bryant. I understand there have been some discussions with schooling about potentially having schools within schools, maybe operated by the LKSD. Can you talk a little about if any of those discussions have been ongoing as to maybe allowing teachers from the region to be able to use Anchorage facilities for sort of schools within schools?
Great question. That's certainly a possibility, but one of the considerations to keep in mind is that it remains to be seen how many teachers will ultimately relocate to Anchorage. But what I can say is that we're having nearly daily calls with the leadership teams of LKSD and others who've been impacted by this disaster, and talking about just that, the possibility of bringing in teachers, teacher assistants, even administrators within our buildings, and then from there we can design a program for students. So it's not off the table, but I would say it's too premature to discuss the specifics until I understand how many staff members will be joining us from LKSD. And to be clear, we're ready and I'm happy to welcome these staff members into Anchorage School District during this difficult time.
And you mentioned that Lake Otis Elementary is one of the schools that's currently housing students. It's also one of the schools that the school board has sort of opted to close at the end of the year. Has this changed that plan at all?
I'll put it this way. So Lake Otis Elementary School has quite a bit of capacity. It's about 50% capacity. So there are a number of classrooms that are available for use. At this time, only about 6 students I'm tracking have elected to enroll in Lake Otis. The bulk of them are actually enrolling in College Gate Elementary School, which has the UPIC Immersion Program, and a number of families have connections to the Alaska Native Cultural Charter School, and they've opted to go there. And others, so given the numbers that we're forecasting now, I don't see how this would impact the right sizing proposal, but my commitment to the board and community is to look at those numbers every day, and if there is some sort of shift, that's exactly the type of information we need to be considering before a decision is made on right sizing.
I have a follow-up for you, Dr. Bryant. If these students move out of shelters into hotel rooms around the municipality, will that impact where they go to school at all, and how would that change things?
It possibly could. As students transition from the emergency shelters to longer term housing, there may be a number of reasons why they would consider a different school, one of which would be they may choose a school that's close to where they will stay permanently. In the case of a hotel situation, that would depend on the specifics as to how long those families will be there. But my commitment is to ensure that our staff are talking with the families of these communities and supporting them as best as we can. I will say that there are some advantages in clustering students into a smaller number of schools, so that way we can provide the most robust amount of student support services, one of which, for example, would be mental health and student support services, as this was an extremely traumatizing event, and we'd like to make sure those resources are deployed for the students. So we're open to it, but again, it is premature given the fact that so many individuals are in this transition state of housing to understand how this will ultimately map out in all of our schools across our 94 facilities.
Johnson, do you have some questions?
Yeah, just a couple for you real quick. This is for the mayor or city manager, and I apologize if you already explained this, I might have missed it, but you had said 655 evacuees have come into Anchorage so far. Last week, that number was kind of potentially larger, between 1,600 to 2,000 potentially. are you still anticipating that the evacuee number could reach that high in, you know, the future, or kind of looking for an update on numbers, what you're expecting?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. At this point, we don't have reason to believe it will reach the 2,000 number. We've scaled that back in our expectations and our planning somewhat to plan for a max of 1,500. That said, what we've been told by the state is there may still be people who are coming who we haven't yet identified, who may be assessing whether their current housing or sheltering situation is tenable to remain in for longer term. And so we are taking it as it comes. The numbers, the big transports have ceased. Those few that we saw at the beginning with several hundred people apiece in the flight. But we understand, and we've been told by the state, we may continue to see smaller numbers of individuals continue to migrate or move into Anchorage after, as the situation continues to unfold.
Okay, just one more quick follow-up for Mayor Lefrance specifically. We spoke last week about how emergencies and homelessness are sort of two separate responses, right? Well, yesterday we reported on a situation where there's been some clashing between evacuees and members of the homeless homeless population. And so some of that seems to come down to mental illness. I'm just curious, within the emergency ordinance that you signed last week, if there's any amount of resources that are being set aside to kind of address mental illness amongst the homeless population that might be feeling resources are being taken from them, whether that's a reality or not.
Thank you for the question. And I want to stress that we're talking about two different kinds of responses. Addressing homelessness is a top priority for my administration. We've abated over 30 camps. We've set up year-round shelter. We've helped connect folks to behavioral health treatment as well as shelter and housing. Now, the folks who are displaced from Western Alaska are evacuees, and they have lost their homes and are disconnected from their land, from their communities. And the state is leading that response, and we are supporting it. Generally speaking, behavioral health remains an area where our entire community, our entire state, in my opinion, would benefit from additional resources and additional connections. And and again, those are two different responses here in our community, and we will continue to address them through those separate approaches.
No, I expect that they're two separate responses, but, for the moments in which they cross lines, I mean, are there any plans in place to sort of help address this issue of members of the homeless community feeling like this is, going to take away resources from them? I only ask because we just reported on it, so I'm just, it seems to be a conversation, and I'm just wondering if there's been any sort of effort to address that within your administration, beyond just saying they're separate responses.
Understood. So in instances where the perception is that there is competition for resources, what will we do to address that perception? Is that the question? We will address issues individually as they arrive. We are committed to continuing to connect people with behavioral health resources. As far as specific public safety resources here and what the municipality is doing, I can ask the municipal manager perhaps to speak to those specifics.
I can say a couple of things. I mean, to the question of will our current support for evacuees divert resources that the municipality is already dedicating to behavioral health services? The answer there is no. We are fully resourcing the things that we provide directly and the services that we provide directly, and will continue to do so. We already touched on the law enforcement question of, to the extent that we need additional public safety presence, that is something that we are adding additional resources for, mostly because we have a bigger population downtown, simply. I mean, the population that we have downtown is not actually that high on an ongoing basis, so now we have several hundred additional residents downtown, and so that's from the public safety perspective. Beyond that, to the extent that the question is about healthcare support for the evacuees, I think I would defer to ANTHC to speak to what the service providers are doing on that respect, because again, that is not something the municipality is handling directly with respect to this. I don't know, Tiffany, if you want to speak to that at all.
In terms of services specific to what has been provided to the evacuees, the Red Cross, to my understanding, has been providing some level of medical coverage, but really the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium and South Central Foundation have collectively been resourcing both shelters with clinical care as well as behavioral health consultations and care that's provided through South Central Foundation. In terms of specifics, we'd have to be able to get those offline too, but we are providing staff that are rounding every day in both shelters.
Definitely. I guess just to follow up on that guy, it's no secret that downtown's been a haven for mentally ill people and vagrants for a long time, and if we're gonna be a welcoming place, I saw they did a story yesterday, and about people who were concerned with some of the stuff downtown, and they were attacked by a crazed man on camera. So if we're gonna be a welcoming place, shouldn't we clean up downtown and not have these people have to deal with the vagrants and mentally ill people that are kind of destroying downtown?
Yeah, I guess that's my question, right? So are there efforts being made to send people out on the streets? So if there is a person who happens to be homeless and is concerned, those concerns are being addressed somehow. That word is getting out so that they don't have to worry about, this being some sort of a threat to them. Obviously, it's not. We all understand that those resources aren't being diverted. But how is that information, if at all, being communicated within the homeless population who might not be getting that memo because of whatever reason, mental health or beyond that?
Thank you for those follow-up questions. And public safety is the #1 responsibility of our municipal government, and we take it very seriously and continue to look at ways we can address issues that arise, particularly in downtown, to address the piece, and we can have the municipal manager speak to some of those specific actions in coordination with APD and partners around the public safety piece of it. We do have, as part of our homelessness response, partners and clinicians who every day are doing outreach with folks who live out on the streets. And we will continue to do that and ensure that people know where to go to access resources and to assure people as appropriate that those resources are available and exist. Do you want to speak again to just some of our approach with downtown and resources that we're driving towards that effort?
Sure, I'm happy to. To the extent, Johnson, that the question is about how do we share information with the unsheltered population in Anchorage about municipal services, the answer is we have a variety of different ways that we share information. We have a variety of different contract organizations who work with us, staffing our congregate shelter here in town, working to coordinate sheltering between our two contracts, between our different congregate sheltering locations. And again, these are congregate shelters simply serving our existing unsheltered population. And we have our mobile crisis team, our mobile intervention team, our safety center who interact with the unsheltered population and share information about our resources that are available. So if that's the question, that's the answer. To the extent the question is, should we focus resources on downtown? The mayor's answer is absolutely. And in other contexts, we have gone through the litany of resources that we're directing at downtown, including changing the way our mobile crisis team works, changing the way our safety center and our safety patrol work, focusing our police resources downtown in a variety of different contexts. In the summer, we had school resource officers downtown. Now we're moving into a phase where we'll have community service officers downtown. So we are absolutely resourcing an effort to increase feelings of safety and security downtown generally, and that includes also making physical changes to infrastructure downtown. To the extent the question is, what are we going to do that's additional right now? We are working with all of those parties on what we might have to do in terms of an additional response, and we have more people in our downtown core. Specifically, I've noted that we're enhancing our police presence right now, but we will also continue to work through with all the different parts of the municipality that provide support services to our residents, to visitors, to make sure that we are fine-tuning as we go and providing everything that we can to make sure that our community feels safe and is welcoming to the evacuees who are here with us as our guests right now.
Well, I guess one more question. A year and a half ago when you took office, I asked about the people who don't want shelter, who refuse shelter, who are, addicted to drugs or alcohol or mentally ill. And there's a lot of those people who don't want shelter, don't want help. Is there a plan yet to deal with people who don't want shelter, don't want help?
Thank you for the question, and thanks to everyone here. I know this is not the topic, the focus of this press event. We are here to focus on the response and the municipality's role with partners to our neighbors in Western Alaska. I will say to your question that we continue to focus on homelessness and connecting individuals with resources. It is not a matter of just offering someone options one single time. It takes multiple times to build trust and to get folks to go into whether it's treatment or shelter or housing. At the same time, we have worked to make sure that our public spaces are safe and accessible to everyone, and we are enforcing the laws around where where it's never okay to camp. And we will continue to take those actions. We will continue to work with partners and continue to move people off the streets and into housing, into treatment, into shelter. Thank you.
We'll go online to a question from James Brooks with the Alaska Beacon. Go ahead, James.
Yes, I'm curious what sort of support or assistance has the Federal Emergency Management Agency provided on the ground so far?
Is that a good question? I'm not sure. It's a good question. At this point, their support has been limited because we're still waiting on the disaster declaration. So if there is a federal disaster declaration, we anticipate substantially or significantly more support from our partners at FEMA.
Has there been any so far?
Yeah, they're effectively, I'm just looking at our emergency manager to fully understand the parlance of what FEMA has done so far, and we understand that their teams are staged. So they are here, they're part of the communication structure for the emergency support response facilitated by the state, but again, I think waiting on full deployment pending the issuance of a federal disaster declaration.
Becky with the Associated Press online, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. For Ms. Wynn Pearson, we've heard some from the state that they're trying to get as many people back as possible if they can, but there are difficulties obviously with winter coming and just the damage. Has the municipality been given any indication in terms of housing when you're identifying these options? Are you being asked, or are you expecting like hundreds to be over 3 months or 6 months or a year? Can you talk a little bit about the length of time that is anticipated for these resources you're identifying?
It's a good question. At this point, the Red Cross and other partners are working to ask what evacuees want and need, where they want to be, whether family units want to be together with an extended family, whether people want long-term shelter to be offered, or if they want to return if at all possible, or relocate to elsewhere in the state. And so at this point, we are awaiting that direction, essentially, of the inventory of the decision from each evacuee about what they would like to do next. I think our role is really to try and generate the resources in our community and have them ready if they are asked for and when they are needed, to make sure that they're ready to be deployed quickly, because we hear the request and the need to have people move out of congregate sheltering as soon as possible.
Any more questions?
Yeah, if I could.
Alex, go ahead.
Question in relationship to that.
I also had one more on the line, once there's a moment.
Yeah, and I did too. This is Nat from Northern Journal.
All right, we'll go Alex, James, Nat, and then we'll be done.
Yeah, how long do you think it will take before these hotel rooms or Airbnb rooms or whatever start to open up? How long so people can start getting housing?
I think the resources are available right now. I mean, we're in a actually a good season for being able to identify non-congregate capacity in the Anchorage community because this is a shoulder season. So to the extent that we've gauged these, determined that these rooms are available right now. The next step is this process that the state is running to identify housing preferences and desires, and then to make that link and that connection and actually reserve rooms and additional space in non-congregate settings. So we are again part of this housing task force call that the state is leading, and met this morning and understand that they're, as has already been relayed, moving as quickly as possible to that. I don't have an exact timeline of a day when that will start, but that is the goal of the state, is to move as quickly as possible, as we understand it, to moving people into the capacity which is available.
Who's next? Is that James next? James, go ahead.
Yes, and this question may be as much born out of my own ignorance as anything else. I'm curious about AHFC's involvement in disaster response. I haven't heard of them being involved in disaster response before. In your experience, is this something new? And what exactly are they doing here?
Their role here is to lead the identification process of housing resources statewide, and they've been tapped by the State Emergency Operations Center lead as the lead agency for doing that work. So we've talked a lot about what kind of resources we've identified as here in our community, and we've fed and handed those resources over to the Housing Finance Corporation lead, who is also working to identify resources in other communities statewide. So in this particular disaster, the role of the Housing Finance Corporation is to serve as the state's lead agency in identifying housing resources and helping to be part of the state's process of marrying those resources to the evacuees who will be seeking housing.
And who was the last person?
Nat. Yeah.
One more.
Nat's next.
Is next.
Yeah, thanks. You guys can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks for the time. It is a little bit of sort of a rambly question, so bear with me, but I think you'll sort of get the gist. I guess, and I know you guys are still in like what must feel like a pretty acute phase of disaster response, but sort of for the municipal officials who are like here and thinking about this stuff, I guess I'm just like curious how you guys have been sort of newly considering and reflecting on Anchorage's sort of role and responsibility as a sort of statewide safety net in the event of a disaster like this one, and how, again, I know this is early, but just sort of how, as like maybe a state collectively, we need to be thinking about like the resources that we as a community of Anchorage like have available and are able to bring to bear in response to a disaster like this one. I think particularly given that, I think what we've been hearing from a lot of folks who are sort of weather and climate experts, but also, folks who are just paying attention, including here at this press conference, who are saying like, this may be the first event like this, but we actually expect the frequency of things like this to be increasing. And so, yeah, just sort of curious how you guys are thinking in that context. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And first and foremost, this event really shows that Anchorage is a hub. It's a travel hub. It's a hub for economic activity, for medical care. And we are also reliant on those in other parts of the state, in rural Alaska, for a lot of economic activity here. And there are many partnerships that define our state and that really are this part of our engine here in Anchorage. As far as what role for Anchorage for addressing the future, I mean, we have to have some statewide action. We are the largest community in the state, and we need to be engaged in those issues to help promote resiliency, not just for those who live in Anchorage, but for everyone in our state. And so I look forward to taking a role in those conversations and being a part of the kind of positive action that will benefit all of us who live here.
I was wondering, is there any chance this were to seek the result in suspension of some of our Kafkaesque building codes and zoning codes to allow for more houses to get built?
We don't. Go ahead.
So do we anticipate a suspension of building codes in an effort presumably to build more housing faster? No anticipation right now, certainly no desire to anticipate anything that ensures the safety of individuals. We are always looking for ways to be more efficient and cut red tape, and certainly depending on what the needs are of our displaced neighbors and the number of individuals who may choose to stay here, we'll be looking at ways that we can best support them with whatever kind of housing and to do that as quickly as possible.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all so much.
Can I go call the Red Cross? Go call the Red Cross.
Can I just do some work here? Like,
Yeah, go for it. I don't
stay here for a couple hours. Well, you get some water.
Absolutely.